Hey, hello guys. Today what I'm gonna do is internationalization of one of the application I have created in the previous tutorials. Great source is this block. I'll use partially snippets, code, which I'm gonna take from this blog post. It's a really a good place. Okay, so let's start. Now with internationalization of our application. The guy in the block which I just showed to you talks about the globalization and localization as a part of the internationalization. Uh, yeah, I don't totally disagree with that. I don't disagree with what he said. So he said that the globalization is a process in which you design your application so it can support different cultures, and localization is actually the process when you customize application for a given culture. Okay, I have a term which I invented, at least I think I invented. ULITA, this is how I call it, includes usability, localization, internationalization, translation, and accessibility. Those are the things, those are the concerns for which you have to think when you create your application. In any case, maybe T could be replaced with G, which is globalization. In any case, let's not get deep into this theory. Let's translate our application. Let me run first this application and see how it looks, and after that I'll tell you what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, Control F9, and hopefully it's gonna start soon. Okay, so this is how my application looks right now. As you can see, everything is in English. Because I'm in Bulgaria, I want to translate these terms in Bulgarian. You can do it for your own language, of course, the same way. Also, in this tutorial is explained how to do it if your writing is Arabic from right to left. Okay, so how can you do that? Actually, one way to do it, the brute force attack actually, is to have layout and view scripts for each one of the language and culture, which is just crazy. Also, I want to mention that it doesn't matter we're using only English, for example. Uh, when we display the dates or the currencies in different cultures, even though they all speak English, these currencies and times are represented differently. For example, French Canadians would write this way the number 100,000. English speaking Canadians would do something like that. So the separator is different. Also, there are differences of the dollar sign. Some of them put them up front of the digit of the number. Other cultures put this at the end. Also, some cultures put the month up front of the date, and all these cultures are actually speaking English. UK English, for example, and American English. So how we can take care of that in our application? Actually, it's very simple. As I said, the brute force attack. The brute force is just to have views for all these different cultures, and also layouts for all these different languages and cultures, which is just a crazy idea. In any case, the language and the culture are represented like that in US, for example, in Microsoft, or for UK we have something like that, and so on and so forth. Okay, so how do we start? Actually, let me show you something else as well. First, when your browser communicates with the web server, it sends the preferred language and culture. Let me show you that. Show advanced settings. Language. Let me look for language. Okay, language and input settings. See right now how my Chrome will determine which is the preferred language. So I want to capture that. I want to be aware about that. All this information is sent in the headers, and I'm going to show this in the Firefox. So my browser, when he sends the request to the server, sends in the header the information about what language do I prefer and what culture actually also do I prefer. And the server could take this information, could make something, could take a decision and send me page which is customized for me, for my culture and my language. This is what I actually want to achieve right now. When I open this page and my preferences are set that I would like to have this page in Bulgarian, I would like this page to be translated in Bulgarian. Okay, so let's do that. Actually, there are two ways to do it. As I said, one of them is just by setting different view scripts and showing different view scripts, creating a conditional logic which shows one or another view script depending on the language which the user prefers. And also another approach is with resources. We'll create a resource file, and the third approach actually is a combination between these two. The third approach is a combination between using the resource files and also using different views. And this is actually the great way to do it, the best way to do it. In the world of open source, the users, the people usually use getText and poedit to achieve the same result. In the world of Microsoft, they use resource files. So let's add resource files to our application and see how can we use them. So step number one, add resources. Okay, add new item. Probably there was a resource I just noticed, but web general. Let me see, where was the resource file? Code C# resource file. Here we go. Let's call this file resources. I'm gonna do this into the application. You can of course put the resource in a separate project, and after that add reference to this project so you can reuse the translations which you're gonna do. But for simplicity, this time I'm just gonna use the resource files. I'm gonna use add the resource files, the files directly to the application. Resource file, resources. Okay, add. Hopefully it's gonna open up. If not, I'm gonna open it. Here we go. Internal. I'm gonna do this resource public. Now, I'm not gonna translate the entire application, but at least these three terms, I can even register and login. I can translate register and login as well, at least for the navigation menu and some items inside. Just as a demonstration, I'm gonna do it. So okay, let's do that. Home is the ID of the term, and this is for English. This resource file will be for English. Home. What else do I have? About contact, contact. Before I forget, just to tell you that on the mind map, a link to which I'm gonna put in the description of the video, under the video, you can find the links to these useful tutorials which I mentioned. Okay, so contact, login, probably, login. Notice something. Those are variable identifiers or property identifiers, field identifiers. So they cannot be they cannot have spaces. So I will say login, and here login, register, register. Okay, so far so good. Resources. We have to add right now a resource file for Bulgarian language. Control S to save this, and I'm gonna translate all these terms. After that I can actually add more terms. Again, right mouse click, resource file, and I'm gonna call this resource file resources bg.res. So let me copy this, contact manager, add new item, Visual Studio, resource file, and I'm gonna call this resources.bg, because the localization will be neutral. So BG Bulgarian. Bulgarian they speak only in Bulgaria. If there are more countries, of course, you can have Bulgarian something. Bulgaria probably is not a good example for localization because they speak Bulgarian in only one locale in Bulgaria. Okay. In any case, resources BG. Add this. See what happens now. Notice something. Resources designer. Only one file, CS file, has been created for all different languages. This is gonna be for English, this is gonna be for Bulgarian. If you have French, you should put here FR. If you have some other languages, you create for each of the languages resource file, and you have to check in internet the abbreviation of your language. For example, Russian, probably it's RU, and whatever. So I'm gonna copy the same terms home, the same keys if you want to call them like that, because this is dictionary. Home on Bulgarian is начало, if I'm not mistaken. I hope so. about okay. So in other words, you translate all these key terms, you translate on your language. Contact. Actually, it's a good example because Cyrillic language causes a lot of problems if you don't know how to, and any other language, actually any other alphabet would cause problems if you don't know how to handle that. Thank you God, Microsoft doesn't give us too much troubles. Contact, login, I'll translate it like that. Whatever I see, register. The same way you can add more terms for the English and for the language which you're interested in. Oh, come on. Okay, so that's it for now. We are done with that. How are you gonna use this? I should open the layout now, because all these terms are in the layout, in the views, shared, layout. This is nothing else but a static class. Actually, let me open this and demonstrate. Okay. Oh god, it's not that fast. It's not fast enough for me. There are no computers which are fast enough. Okay, resources designer. Look at here. Public class resources private static system resource, blah 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 blah. And each term actually, it's a property here, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. Public static string get, so it can be accessed by typing the name of the class dot, and after that the name of the property, about, contact, and so on and so forth. Resources bg is one. In resources bg actually you have only the terms in XML format. Okay, so open this. Okay, let me show you something else. Open folder in View Explorer, in File Explorer. I'll go down and say resources bg. Let me open this in Notepad++ and see what it is, how it looks. Actually, it's XML file, nothing else. Microsoft loves XML files, so the translations should be here. Login, Vlason Bulgarian, home, Начало, whatever. Okay, this is how the file looks, and it doesn't correlate to the CS file, which is very important. Okay, now we are almost done. Actually, we are done. Let me go to the layout again, find these terms, and show you how to replace the hard-coded values with resources. Come on, give me a break. Okay, I have been lucky, finally it has been done. Now it doesn't think anymore. So home, instead of hard coding here home, this term, I always use resources. Oops, sorry about that, it's Bulgarian. Okay, home. And .NET is gonna take care of that, home. So all these hard-coded links will be replaced with resources, home, resources about, resources, whatever. Following the convention of Razor. Okay, resources, contact. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, now login partial. In the login partial we have the terms like login, register. Let's change them. Here I'm gonna say resources. Well, basically you go through your application, and whatever you find the term, you just replace it with resources dot whatever the term is, or whatever you name it, the resource, the term which you wanna translate. So I'm using here the key, and the value will be put by .NET when the application runs. Resources register. Okay, we're almost done. Here we have log off. I didn't translate this term, but the same way you can translate this as well. I'm very curious to see now if all these terms will be translated in my application when I set my preferred language to Bulgarian. It was quite easy, isn't it? Okay, save it. Let's build the application, and after that the solution, and after that let's refresh. Build. Okay, if we refresh now the application, nothing's gonna happen because nobody changed the global UI in our application. Nothing's gonna happen. The resources are ready, but right now nobody is picking up the information which is sent together with the headers, and nobody is taking action about that. So we have to take care of that. In this tutorial which I mentioned, the guy offers one solution, which is to create a base controller and all other controllers to inherit from that. In other words, doesn't matter which action you're hitting, you always go through this base controller, and the base controller has an action, has a function, which method, which takes care of setting the proper global UI, this value for our application. So in order for this to work properly, I have to do a little bit more work, and this is adding a controller. And this is what I'm gonna use right now from this article, which I mentioned, in which I show it to you. I'm gonna create a base controller. Click with the right mouse button. I will adopt this technique, even though there are other techniques as well. But this is simple enough, and recently I use it, so why not? MVC 5 controller, and this is gonna be empty. It's base controller. Base controller, all other controllers, account controller, CM controller, a home controller, management controller, all they have to inherit. They have to inherit from this base controller. Let me just make sure that this is exactly what I need. Yep, it's called base controller. Okay, base controller, and if you allow me, I will copy and paste, because otherwise it's too much typing. And also we're gonna discuss a little bit what's going on in this code. Okay, I'm taking this from another project. Okay, I'm gonna put everything here. I'm gonna copy everything. So as you can see, there is a hook which is used. Base controller. There is a method which we override. async result begin execute core. There is a hook, and we attach our application here. Actually, it's some kind of a event handler which we attach on this event begin execute core. Callback object state. Okay, string culture name. In the code I have put it also a link to the article where you can copy this tutorial. I may also put this code snippets in Pastebin, so, and put the link under the video. So culture helper. We will need one class more. We'll need a helper. What I'm gonna do is this helper, actually, it's gonna do the following. It's gonna take the information right now from the header, but what other options do we have about the culture and the language? The culture is the common term for the localization and the language as well. So what other techniques can we use? So first, browser settings. Browser settings, which I showed to you, and I'm gonna show you the headers which depend on these settings. This way we can determine how to show the pages. Which localization do we have to use and what language? Another way is to use cookie. Okay, the third way, of course, is the session. We can store this information into the session. And the fourth approach is URL. We can always keep the information about the language into the URL. Probably you have seen a lot of URLs which are actually, this is maybe the best from the CEO, search engine optimization perspective approach. BG, and after that you see something. So that means that you have to show this page. I will call this page 1, for example. So you have to show this page actually in Bulgarian language. You can access the very same page, but this time you can prefix with en. Oops. Phew. Okay. So we can say en page 1. And this helper actually is gonna help us to solve this issue, to figure out, in this case, from the headers, what actually the user is expecting, what language and culture the user is expecting. But this helper can be modified slightly and can do that. So just by changing this prefix, you can have the very same page translated and customized, localized for English, for Bulgarian, for Arabic, whatever. Okay, so this is the second thing I have to add here to the project. I'm gonna create a folder which I'm gonna call helpers. As I said, the guy from the tutorial I mentioned offers this approach, and I'm gonna follow it, helpers, and I'm gonna create a class culture helper here, and again I'm gonna copy and paste, add, not controller, this time it's gonna be class, and it's a helper. The very same way we create, for example, a folder services, and we put the business logic in this folder in different classes. We encapsulate the domain logic, and after that we could use, for example, Ninject or Windsor project, Castle Windsor project, to inject. We'll use inversion of control and dependency injection container to inject this functionality in our controllers. So for the controller, there is not much to do, and also the dependency is reduced to only one dependency of the dependency injection container. There are, right now I'm thinking there are even better ways to do it. Okay, I'm not gonna touch this right now. So culture helper. Oh, mamma mia. Public static, culture helper, static class. Okay. Again, static class, so I can use it without instantiation. I'm gonna copy this class and put it here. Let's discuss a little bit the code. So first we have a list of valid cultures. Look at that. AF, I don't know this language, but for English, for example, we can see different cultures. EU, BN, let me search for EN. English, I want to see for English because it's the most popular. Okay, look at this. English neutral, English Australia, English, I don't know what that is, Canada, 029, I don't know what that is, GM. So a lot of countries are actually location on the planet are speaking English. US, no wonder they had a lot of colonies. Even the US was a colony, whatever. Okay, so in US, and here, as you can see, I have chosen Bulgarian culture, and only Bulgarian neutral culture. Arabic, Spanish, I have commented. So private static, read-only list cultures. Those are the expected cultures for my application, and yeah, I determined them here in this helper. Public static bool is right to left eventually if the language is Arabic. String get implement culture, whatever. As I said, I'm gonna put probably links, so you will be for you it's gonna be easy to copy and paste this these snippets of code. So control point from control dot gathering suggestion. Come on, I'm missing a namespace here. Trading, thread, voila, trading. So how in fact the change of the culture happens? Thread, culture, current thread, current culture, name. This is how it happens. We just have to send this variable and the culture will be appropriate. Let's go back now to the base controller and do the same. At control dot using system thread. Voila. So here we go. We have to set two values, current UI culture and current culture, and this all is done in the thread. This is done the same way even for the console applications. So I admire the consistency of Microsoft. Culture helper, control dot again current helper, because I'm using this current helper. I have actually extracted all the functionality in this helper, which I use everywhere. And now all I have to do now, it's pretty simple. Let's discuss a little bit. Then execute core. As I said, this hook is going to be executed each time when the controller actually it's called, when we have to execute an action from this controller. So it's culture name null. We checked for the cookie. If the cookie is not set, I'm opening the door so I can change actually the language by setting a cookie which is called culture underscore culture. Of course you can change the name according to your wishes, and you check for this cookie. If you cannot find it, then you get the language and the locale from the headers which are sent by the browser. After that you set the culture name using the culture helper. Just make sure that whatever string you get is correct, and after that you set these two variables and you're done. That's all you have to do actually to change the culture of your thread. And Visual Studio, not Visual Studio, but .NET is gonna take care of everything else. Beginning execute core callback state, and that's it. Here I have a code snippet. Again, the source is the same. I have to give credit to this guy. The same thing, but if you decide to use, for example, changing the culture and the language through the URL. Okay, so let's stick with this example right now. We are gonna check for cookie. I'm not setting anywhere the cookie. So my application will check for the headers, for the appropriate header, will determine the culture name from the header, and after that is gonna set the culture in the thread, and that's enough to have the page translated. Now, as I said, all my controllers now have to inherit from the base controller. I have no other choices, so I'm gonna say base controller, base controller. Okay, CM controller. Otherwise, only some of the controllers will work properly. This is something which I don't like very much in this approach, but it's a still good approach, and I use it. So I don't have to. I have to remember that each time I have to inherit from the base controller for each new controller I'm creating. Home controller, the very same thing. Base controller. I showed to you how you can use after that the resources, the resource files we have created in the views, in the layout and the view scripts. Base controller, and we are done. Now when I build the solution, I expect everything to work properly. Okay, so let's check. Now I'm gonna refresh, and I will expect this time, if there are no errors, these terms to be translated in Bulgarian. Let's see if that happens. I'll open the application, as I said, in Firefox to show you the headers. Okay. In Bugzilla, not Bugzilla, but Firebird. Come on. Firebug. Yeah, Mozilla Firefox. Come on. That usually takes a lot of time. Initially, when you start it, we'll play a little bit. Ah, voila! Look at that now. All these terms has been taken from the resource files, and they are translated in Bulgarian. Why I'm seeing these terms in Bulgarian? Very simple, because my preferred language is Bulgarian. He has been put on the first place here in the settings. This is how you change its position. Now the page is gonna be shown on English United States. Say done. Now let's refresh and make sure that now we will see everything on English United States. Contact, register, login. Perfect. Okay, let's go back again and change it to Bulgarian, just to show you the proof that everything works fine. So Bulgarian is my preferred language. I'll say done. Refresh again, and the page is gonna be translated. Actually, I prefer this way, because you may access this page from your tablet, from your smartphone, whatever, and it's much easier. I find it's much easier actually to take the information for the preferred language from the device, instead of allowing you here to change your language. Of course, this also could be done. You just have to take a look at the code, which I mentioned already. Even the code which I have in the Visual Studio, you just have to take a look at this code, and you'll understand. For example, you can set a cookie here, and the cookie will determine which language is gonna be shown. The page is gonna be shown on this language, and also which locale do you prefer. Also session, and as I said here, you can set something like en in the URL, whatever you like. Just look at the code and you'll figure this out. Okay, I will stick with this example, taking the information about the preferred language and the locale from the browser. Okay, I promise, I did that several times, that I'm going to run Firefox and show the headers. So let me do that. AVG, oh my god, I have this antivirus program. Actually, it is a virus itself. I hate that. Whatever. It does some good things, so I have to admit. Okay. Okay, why I'm seeing in Bulgarian? Because my preference is set this way. I'll take advantage of the chance to show you how to change the settings here in Firefox. Probably it's somewhere here in content. Times New Roman. Choose your preferred language for displaying pages. Yep, it is here. Choose, and voila, Bulgarian. Move down, and now when I refresh it here, I expect to see everything in English. Yep, here we go. Let's go back and say that our preferred language is Bulgarian. Move up. Okay. Let's refresh again. let's start the Firebug. Clear console. Let's start Firebug for this page, and let's look at the headers. HTML.net. Let me refresh now the page so we'll see what is going on here. Request, response, everything. Get. Here we go. This is the headers. Let's look at the headers. Response headers. This is what the server sends back to the browser. Request headers. Here we go. BG ENUS. BG ENUS. Where is only EN? Here we go. And also there is a weight which is added to each one of the languages. So 0.7 plus 0.3, it gives me 1, which says that probably this coefficient for Bulgarian is 0.7. You can change this as well somewhere in the settings. In other words, this is how much we prefer Bulgarian over English. So it's 70% we prefer Bulgarian over English, something like that. Okay, so I think so. It should be something like that. Okay, so let's change again the settings and see how the headers will change. Response, HTML, cache, cookies. I don't have cookie culture, so that's why I'm using the headers. One of the possible techniques, of the 4 possible techniques which we discussed. I prefer this technique, and in this tutorial I'm gonna show only this. Maybe in another tutorial I can show another techniques, but I will stick with this technique with the settings from the browser. Okay, come on. Okay, now options. Let's change the content, the choice. Bulgarian, I'll move down, and let's see how everything looks now. Again, refresh, and we'll see the headers, the response, and the request. Here it is, the request, here it is, the response, here it is, the request. Bulgarian 0.3, English United States, English Q 0.7. So we have 70% preference for the English right now. Okay, so let me bring it back to Bulgarian. Choose a browser. Maybe you're asking yourself, what about the long terms? No problem. We'll get there as well. Okay, I would leave it as it is right now. We saw how the headers look and how we determine the culture. We determine the culture from the header, from the request. Okay, this is one of the possible techniques. I'm repeating again. Another one could be cookie. It's a really light way to do it. Session, usually I keep it in the session, and the session on top of that I keep in the database. Could be a memory database in the memory. There are many approaches, and probably the best for the search engine optimization perspective is to keep the language, the preferred language, in the URL. This is the 4th approach. Okay, let me go back to the Visual Studio. Let's get back there. Okay, what about the long terms? For example, when I go to for us, about your application description, it's not practical actually, and I'm not sure if it's possible to put so long text here in the resources and give identifier. That's not very good thing. So I showed to you the first approach with resource files. The second approach is just to change the view script which we are showing for the different cultures, for the different languages and cultures and locale. Okay, so let's go to home and let's look at about. Now instead of having this about, which is English, we could copy this about page, rename it. I cannot use a dot here in the file name, I believe. We'll see now. About.bg. Let me see. No, I have been able, but just for any case I'm gonna use underscore. Let me do it like that. So now I will translate this this view script. Here I'm gonna put only Bulgarian language. Let me do something else here. I'm gonna open the controller and create I remember I had problems. Home controller. Let me see the home controller. Action result about. Okay, I'm gonna click with the right mouse button and say create a view. Add view, and I'm gonna name it about_bg, whatever Visual Studio decides to put. This is better way, I believe, to do it. bg empty without model, template create as private view, user layout page. Okay, that's enough. Add, and now here I can put my Bulgarian text. Here we go. And here I'm gonna say not about, I'm gonna say something in Bulgarian. Blah blah on Bulgarian, whatever, using Cyrillic alphabet. This is our page. This is something like that. Okay, so maybe it's something like foo, something stupid, but whatever. So it's enough just to see that the title of the page, the header, the head of the page, and a little bit text in Bulgarian. Now, the interesting thing is how we are gonna switch now from this view. View has several overrides, and we are gonna use one of them. So in order to render a different view, you can put the full path to it. I'm gonna say views here. I'm gonna try like that. Views. One thing you can send here is the view model, but another thing is you can actually say which view script you wanna render. This way you can render view scripts which are from another controllers. Another smart thing to do is probably controllers which you're gonna use in many different controllers to put in the folder shared. So what the visuals, what the system is gonna do, ASP.NET MVC is gonna do is gonna look for the view script in the correlated folder. If cannot find it there, is gonna look in the shared for the view script with the same folder, with the same name, with the appropriate name, and is gonna render this view. But if you want to force it to render a certain view script, this is the way you do it. Views, I believe, home, and my view, which I'm gonna render in case the language is Bulgarian, is gonna be about BG, and I have to add a condition. About BG C# HTML. Okay, so now I have to add only a conditional logic. Let me copy this. We simply have to look at in the helper and use our helper to determine if the current language is Bulgarian or English or whatever. Of course you can find a smarter way, but since I have only two languages, two cultures, I'll allow myself to do it with a conditional logic. Okay, let me see here. Home controller. Let me copy just to make sure I'm not making any mistakes. This is something else. So current neutral culture name equals bg current string. Yep. Probably I did it just to make it clear where this variable comes from. Current neutral culture name, culture helper, and just for any case I have put the localization as well here, bg. This should be enough, but for some reason I put it more here. Okay, so control dot using culture helper. This is the way you use the culture helper, and that's it. This should do the trick. So from the culture helper I get the current neutral culture. This is a method which has been defined in the culture helper. Here, get current neutral culture. Is this what I'm using here? Yep, get current neutral culture. Once you have the variable right now, you can compare with the string bg, which is the expected language, which is neutral, and the bg with the locale, just for any case. This of course is not absolutely necessary. I believe that only this part is enough, but just for any case I have this as well, in case I'm calling another method from culture helper. Okay, and in this case, if the culture is bg, I'm gonna render about bg. So this is actually how you translate your view scripts. If you need to do this for the layout, for other view scripts, for partials, this is the way to do it. So I'm using combination between the resource file and the logic, which allows me to render different view scripts depending on the culture and the locale. Okay, let's build this. Let's prove that works, and I think this pretty much wraps up everything what I wanted to cover for the translation. If you look at the code, you can find a link to the code from the mind map. I may put a direct link. Maybe I will put them in paste bin, whatever. If you look at the code, you can easily figure out how to do this using the cookies, using the session, or saving the preferred language in the URL, which I think it's a very good option as well. But I prefer to take the current culture from the header, from the request in the header, which I'm receiving from the browser. Okay, let me see if that works now. Refresh, and it should render now Bulgarian page. We have to wait a little bit. And that's it. Pretty much that's it about the different cultures and internationalization of your application. You just have to choose the method which you're going to use. This is very often used, as I said, the header. Google use it, so Google is using this method. So there is no explicit flags or pull down menu which allows you actually to force your language. You just have to go to the settings, and the users get used to that. You have to go to settings of your device tablet, iPhone, whatever, smartphone, and you change your preferred language, and voila, you will get everything, all the pages once on the language you prefer and the locale you prefer. Either you're Canadian English or French Canadian, whatever, English Canadian, French Canadian, everything is gonna is gonna be shown in the proper format, in the proper language. Voila, I have this view script on Bulgarian. .NET MVC has rendered the Bulgarian view script. Okay, let me summarize and wrap up. So, if you need to do internationalization for your application, they claim that internationalization has two parts, that's globalization and localization. I would add translation as well, so this is not that important. The important part is how you actually translate the short terms. This is done through the resources. You add the resource file either in a separate project to which you put a reference in your project or in the same project for the different languages. Here I have resources for English and resources for Bulgarian. Okay, this is for the default language. After that, you can copy this logic, these classes, from the tutorial I showed to you. Here we go. I have to give credit to this guy. This is one of the possible approaches. You can copy the code snippets, you can read more if you like, you can do other things, whatever. Culture helper, which checks for eventually for a cookie. If cookie is not set, then it takes the information from the header. Look at here for the preferred language and the locale. And after that, it sets the current thread culture and current UI culture, these two values. After they have been set to the appropriate values, everything happens automatically. The numbers, the currencies, everything is gonna be shown according to the locale, and the terms in the resource files will be used. Let me show you again the layout. Where is the layout? Here we go. This is how you use it. Resources home, if it's necessary, of course. According to the rules in the Razor, you can put here this sign if you want to print it directly for some reason, and you use the key, and the value will be taken accordingly, the language and the locale. Okay, so for long text, actually, which comes from the database, in the database you have to keep records for different languages, translations. In this case, I'm not using database. In this case, I'm using files in the file system. For the longer text, for example, in the view scripts, you create another view script on the language you want to display, and in the controller, in the action, you can switch using a conditional logic. If it's that simple. If there are more languages, probably you have to search for a better way to do it. Probably this could be done automatically with concatenation. After that, take this BG, and that's it. With concatenation could be done and render the appropriate view script. In this case, I did it with conditional logic. What I'm talking about is this. Instead of having this BG, you can create the string. This is what I'm talking about, and this is gonna be a smarter solution, of course, and better solution. Here you put current neutral culture, name. You just have to make sure that everything is the way you like it. Something like that is gonna do the trick. And you could have unlimited amount of different languages and cultures. Okay, so my monitor probably is gonna turn off in 1 minute, so I have to restart it. That's it. Let me try that. Let's see if this works. I expect that this to be BG. So about, and you have to follow the convention. I have one underscore. So the name of the view script has been created. This reminds me artificial intelligence, but that's another topic. Maybe I will discuss in another video. So let me build a solution. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm recording, because F9 usually stops the recording, and here is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit tricky with Visual Studio, where F5, F10 also, Control F5. Okay, let's build it and let's see if that works. And you'll have unlimited amount of different cultures and languages. You just have to follow this rule. Of course, probably you have to add a little bit logic to see if the file exists, because if the file doesn't exist, the view script doesn't exist, you'll have troubles. Okay, so let me try now about if that works. But basically this is the approach which we are gonna use. And as I said, I highly recommend this blog post. Thank you, Nadim Afana, or whatever the name it is. Great job on that. You can read this after watching this tutorial if this is not enough, or you can find other sources. I will put at least link to the mind map, and from the mind map here, if you hover, you can find the link which is necessary. So mind map is my central point. Okay, so let me make sure that everything works, and we'll wrap up after this summary. Two techniques: translating the view script directly, and after that switching the view scripts in the action, and using the resources, the resource files with the terms which you have to translate. Okay, so as you can see, everything works fine. Whatever approach you choose, it's okay. Each one of them has its advantages and disadvantages. As I said, I see more and more sites using the header, so that's why I'm covering the header. But you can use cookies, you can use session, you can use the URL. If you're gonna use the URL, actually, just before I forget, you have to touch a little bit the root. Let me see that. Application start. Here in the root config, what you have to do is actually here before controller, you actually have to add here something like language, home action, ID optional, and you have to think about switching the languages. I'm gonna remove that, but at least you know how to approach this problem. Ignore roots, pet info. Let me make sure everything is as it was before, so the application works. Probably in other videos I could cover this topic as well, but you can find a lot of materials in internet. Thank you for watching, and I'll be doing more videos probably. To the next time.